Morning everyone. Welcome to 27th lecture of Grid and Cloud Computing. So in this lecture, we'll discuss about grid resource management and the brokering policy. So you know that broker is a intermediator between the service provider, right? Service provider and service consumer, right? So you can say it is an intermediate person between the provider and consumer, right? And another responsibility of the broker is to get the requirements from the customer or consumer. Accordingly, it has the information about the provider. So what it says, what it does, it actually maps the requirements based upon the customer. It is mapping with the provider specifications, right? So it is just a, you can say it is a third party between two different party which manages everything. Okay. So apart from that also we'll see how the grid resources are managed. We'll also discuss about grid resource management middleware, including various scheduling policies like in operating system. You have studied first in first out algorithm, shortest job first algorithm, SRTF algorithm, shortest remaining time first, round robin algorithm, right? So similarly here also we'll see various scheduling policies and their classifications. We'll also see the monitoring of the resources, and we'll also see the accounting part, because whenever a consumer is using the resources of a provider, then after the end of the service it is going to pay for it. Just like if you see in your childhood, internet is not that much popular at that day, although it is a need, but at that time that is not available in our handheld devices. So we are going to a particular cave, internet cave, and we are browsing the internet for 1 hour, right? So after using 1 hour of internet, then we are paying some amount as a consumer to the cave owner, that is the provider, right? Suppose I want to use for 2 hours, then I have to pay accordingly. 3 hours, then accordingly I will pay accordingly, right? So per hour, let's say 10 rupees or 20 rupees, accordingly I have to pay as for the number of hours used as a consumer, right? So accounting plays an important role. Accounting will say that what is your actual bill, okay, how much you have to pay after using the resources, right? And in this chapter also, in this section also, we are going to discuss two grid resource management technology. One is a very popular, which I repeatedly suggest you, that is Globus, right? There are a lot of versions are also there for Globus. We'll go for a generic version, generic structure, Globus toolkit. Second one is the very famous China grid, which we discussed in the last class about China grid, where educational institutions are collaborating each other so that they can provide the resources, right? So these two are the you can say these two resource management technologies we will discuss, right? So come to the first one, that is grid resource brokering, right? And scheduling are two kernel function of the grid resource management. So in order to manage the resources, two things are very essential component, or we can say it is a kernel function. First one is grid resource brokering, to manage the resources, to know the capacity, hardware capacity, software configuration of the resources. We need a broker. And once you know these resources details, the very important part is scheduling, because a lot of customers are asking for resources. So you have to map these customers to the appropriate resources, because the requirement of each and every customer is different. As the requirement of each and every customer is different, accordingly you have to choose the appropriate resources by fulfilling the request of a particular customer, right? So this here the broker plays an important role, right? As a broker is a intermediate person between the provider and consumer. It plays an important role, and it has a lot of responsibilities, okay, a lot of functionalities in order to assign the resources, in order to perform the accounting operations. All things are managed by the broker, right? So in a grid system, resources are, you know that all are autonomous system, and these resources are not necessarily part of a particular organizations, right? Because multiple organizations are collaborating each other. So the resources maybe belongs to this organization, the resource may belongs to this particular organizations. So they are autonomous in nature. At any point of time, they can join or they can leave. Okay. So accordingly, you have to manage the load of the various resources, right? You have to see that sufficient number of resources is available, or you have to manage the loads with less number of resources as well. So each organization, if you see, may have its own resource management system, which we call as RMS, right? This organization has a RMS, okay? One RMS unit is here, which is managing the resources of this particular organization. There may be another resource management system in the another organization, like that. If you go for another organization, there is a resource management system. So what we need? We need to collaborate these three organizations if they will collaborate. Like I showed you, two physical organizations collaborate each other to create three virtual organizations. Okay, or you can say three physical organizations are together sharing the resources to create two virtual organizations. Generally, number of physical organizations should be more, right? So you can create two virtual organizations. So one may be devoted to the drug development, another may be applicable to aircraft design, right? Such applications you can run launch under these virtual organizations, right? So as each and every each and every organization has a resource management system. So they know the status of each and every resources available inside the organizations, right? So they know that when the resources can be shared to other RMS or other organizations, or when they need to ask the resources to other resource management system. Okay, sometimes there is a scarcity of resources, sometimes there is a surplus number of resources, right? So accordingly, they are asking the resources to other, right? So this organization, if you see, it is more reasonable. This RMS is more reasonable and adaptable, right? And these RMSs are collaborated each other, which we call as RMSES, right? Multiple RMSs are collaborate each other to provide the services, right? So in order to deal with the fluctuating demand, okay, or the peak demand, RMS need to be collaborate with other RMSs, right? So RMSs in the upper level can be considered as your resource consumer, right? Generally, consumer is available in the upper level, and lower level is normally a hardware one, which we call as a resource provider, right? So upper level can be considered as a resource consumer, lower level can be considered as a resource provider. Generally, storage, computation, network, everything there in the lower level, that is in the provider end, right? And consumer is providing the requirement, right, based upon their application, and provider is going to provide that thing to the consumer, right? So in between this upper level and lower level, the brokering plays an important role, right? So I'll show you the figure of the structure of this particular model in the next slide. But before that, I want to tell you this particular structure of the model is having four published interfaces. There are four interfaces are there. Like you are interacting with cloud through a web browser, or a user interface, or a portal, or a portlet, right? By the help of that, you are interacting with a particular system. So if you want to go for this resource management system, you have to see there are four different published interfaces, right? One of the popular interface is your resource consumer interface. Resource consumer interface. So first one is called resource consumer interface. Why it is used? It is used for assess the upper level resource management system or your user applications. Generally, user application is deployed using this resource consumer interface. Then there is a resource discover, right? Discoverer, right? I'll show you the figure so that it is more clear. So you can see this is the resource consumer interface, right? So by which you can submit a request to the grid management system or the grid resource management system, right? Here you can say there is a resource discover. What is the responsibility of this one? It searches the qualified resources. Okay. It checks that as per your requirement, suppose as a client you are submitting a particular request. So this resource discover is going to check what are the possible resources that can be given to you, right? Or which satisfies your requirement. That is the job of this discover. Then there is a resource disseminator, right? The role of this disseminator is to broadcast the information about local resources to other RMSs. Sometimes what happens, this resource management system is not sufficient to fulfill your request. So what happens? One resource management may request other resource management in order to fulfill their the customer's requirement, right? In that case, the disseminator is sending messages to other RMS that these are the requirements. Can you please provide the resources to me? So that one RMS will connect with another RMS and they can collaboratively provide the resources. Then there is a resource trader as well. The responsibility of resource trader is exchanges resources among the RMSs, right? The trader, the main responsibility is to they are exchanging the message between each other, right? And last is the resource resolver. You can see here resource resolvers routes the job to the remote RMS. Suppose you want to run a particular application in your RMS, but you want to send some other jobs to another RMS, then resource reservoir is going to send that to other resource manager, okay, or other resource management system, right? And resource co-locator is there. Resource co-locators allocates the multiple resources to a particular job. If a job is assigned with multiple resources, so this is the responsibility of resource co-locator to monitor these things, right? To assign these things and monitor everything, right? Apart from that, you can see there is a QoS broker is there. QoS broker's responsibility is to check the quality of the service. Suppose one customer may specify availability is required is 99.99%. So this is the quality of service, right? That you need to fulfill that one. Otherwise, the customer requirement is violated. That is the responsibility of QoS broker. And scheduler and state estimator is there. It is dispatching the request to a particular RMS, right? Or it is estimating that where a particular client's resources is present, right? Whether it is in a submission phase or it is in the assignment phase or the results are processing phase. That thing is the responsibility of this one. Okay. Similarly, job manager is there. It is dispatching the jobs to its own resource management system, or it may dispatch the jobs to other resource management system, right? Similarly, various proxies are used here. You can see that naming proxy, security proxy, or other proxies are used in the resource management system. Okay, so this is the complete picture. You can see a lot of interfaces, whatever we discussed. They are represented here. And these are the various interfaces. One is resource consumer interface, resource manager peer interface, resource manager support interface, and another is your resource provider interface. These four things are available. Okay, next is RMSs are collaborating each other. Resource management systems are collaborating each other. So it forms a hierarchy. Hierarchy means a tree-like structure, right? One resource manager is connected to another resource management. They are connected to another resource management, or they are connected to multiple resource management. So this is like a tree structure or hierarchical structure, right? That's why it is called as hierarchy of resource management systems. So these resource management systems are interconnected with each other. The reason is that to share the resources. One organization will share the resources with other organization. That organization share resource with other organization, so that combinedly they have a very big amount of computation power. Okay, as they are present in a hierarchical structure, so you can say that uh, this hierarchical structure, they can build a very massive power, or you can say they are collaborating each other for any big applications where the storage requirement is there or computation or network requirement is there, they can fulfill. Okay, so resource provider interface is used for the lower level of resource management system or actual resources. The lower level is the bottom layer where service provider plays an important role. Upper level is your service consumer. So whenever you are making a job request, first we will check that whether the job request can be fulfilled or not. That is the responsibility of QoS broker. Sometimes what happens, you require a resource specific size or a specific computation that may not be available. So QoS broker is going to check whatever request you are submitting, whether that can fulfill your requirement or not. Okay. If your request is fulfilled, then the job request are accepted from the interface. Okay. And it is forwarded to the local scheduler. Right. Local scheduler means each and every RMS is having a scheduler. So we can give to a particular RMS so that that resource management system is going to assign the resources through this local scheduler. Second part is your, if you come to the job scheduling methods, so you know that job scheduling has plays an important role starting from operating systems. Operating system also you have studied about CPU scheduling, you have also studied about disk scheduling. In memory management, you have also seen page replacement algorithm. So based upon the scenario of the computer systems, there are a lot of scheduling algorithms are there. So what I can say, scheduling algorithm is not a completely new topic, right? So based upon the traditional one, we are carrying forward the things in various computing paradigm, right? Like based upon the previous algorithms, cluster computing has its own scheduling policy. Based upon the cluster policy, something is modified. Grid is using that policy. Based upon the grid, now cloud is using the scheduling policies. So they are not completely new, but their environment in which they are working, that is new, right? So if you see the research point of view, I can say much research has been conducted on the scheduling technology in the traditional distributed system. So based upon that, there is two schemas are designed. Two schemas are used to classify these particular technologies. The scheduling technology in the traditional distributed system is divided into two schemas. One is your hierarchical classifications, where we are relying on a multi-level tree, right? Just like you can see in this diagram, this is a multi-level tree. There is a level 0 is there, level 1 is there, level 2 is there, level 4 is, level 3 is there, like that it will go on. So they are maintaining a tree structure, right? Based upon the tree structure, they are arranged. That is one type of schema. Another schema is based upon the flat classification. Okay. So hierarchical classification classifies scheduling method by a multi-level tree, whereas flat classification based upon a single attribute. So based upon a particular attribute, you have to make the classifications. One may be adaptive, another is non-adaptive. If adaptive, it is belongs to one, non-adaptive, it belongs to another one. Based upon the load balancing capability, you can also classify. Based upon the bidding, based on the probabilistic approach, based upon one-time assignment or dynamic assignment, or you can say static assignment or dynamic assignment, you can perform the classifications. So there are two schema, but in this discussion, we will limit our discussion to hierarchical classification, not the flat application, flat classification, right? Okay, so this is the classification I am going to tell you in detail. Okay, before that, you know that the resources in the grid are completely heterogeneous. But if you go for cluster, if you go for cluster resources are homogeneous, but grid resources are heterogeneous. Heterogeneous means what? Their hardware capacity, each and every participating computer systems, hardware capacity, software configurations, libraries, okay, or you can say other things. If you see, their configurations are different, right? But if you go for the cluster, the resources are homogeneous in structure. So what happened? The hardware capacity and software configurations are more or less same, right? So as the system is migrating from homogeneous system to heterogeneous system or a cluster system to the grid system, what I can say, traditional scheduling is not sufficient. Okay, because traditional scheduling, if you go for traditional scheduling, the main point of traditional scheduling is to determine the resource allocation without considering the difference among the sites. we are assuming that each and every site or each and every organization is having equal number of resources, or we are saying that each and every organization can take same number of loads, okay, same amount of load, which is not practically true. That's why traditional scheduling is not acceptable in grid, right? Because grid is dealing with heterogeneous one, where it may happen that one organization is having very big power, another organization is having very low power, right? That's why traditional scheduling is not acceptable in our grid system. Okay, and you have to analyze how to deal with this problem. In order to deal with this problem, you have to see the inner structure of the applications. Whatever application submitted by a user or whatever source code of a particular program, you have thoroughly analyzed. If you thoroughly analyze, then you will know what is the load. Sometimes one particular program P1 require 2000 volume of instructions. Okay, 2000 volume of instructions. Another program P2 is there which require 300 volume of instructions. So you cannot say that the program 1 has the same load as program 2, right? That things you have to check. As you are dealing with scheduling one parameter is used that is called as make span. Like if you remember in operating system, you are calculating turnaround time, right? Turnaround time is the completion time, right? So make span is the overall completion time. Suppose you have three systems. In these three systems, you have assigned some work. First system is completing the work at 10 unit of time. Second system completing it 20 unit of time. Third system is completing at 30 unit of time. Then the make span is 30. Okay, the make span is 30, right? So you can say this make span of the individual jobs also you can analyze once a job is completed. Based upon that, also you can calculate what is the completion time of each and every individual job. You can also calculate make span of each and every individual machine. Like here I am telling 10 is the completion time of the first machine. Whatever work you have submitted to the first machine, it is completed at 10 meter time. Okay. Similarly, whatever works you have assigned to the second machine, it is completed in 20 units of time. Okay. But while you are going for a distributed system, we can say that these all systems are combined together. So the highest time is 30. So 30 is treated as make span. Make expense also includes your queuing time. Sometimes whenever a request is reaching to this submitted to a particular computer, so there is a queue. In that queue, the request may arrive and wait because the computer system is busy. That things also you have to consider. The data transfer time between the broker, okay, broker is a centralized unit to a particular computer system. That is our data transfer time. That also you have to analyze. The third part is also you have to see how much time it is required to compute a particular thing. So three things. One is queuing time in the particular computer system. Second is the communication time between the broker to that computer system. Third is how much time it takes to compute a particular thing. These three things you have to calculate in order to determine the make span of a system. Okay, and you can take some sample data sets or benchmark programs are required. Okay, required, right, to collect the information for training the performance model. You can check the performance of the model or train a particular model. For that, you require some sample data sets and benchmark program. And the resources in the grid are dynamically allocated for different applications because all the applications are reaching to the resource management system through a interface. Then the resource management system is dynamically allocating. There is no human being present there, right? There is no human being is there to monitor each and everything. There is automatically we have written some software unit is there, right? That software unit is responsible for dynamically allocating the resources by looking into the client's requirement and by looking into the provider can provide. Both requirements we are matching. Based upon that, we are dispatching the request, right? And the main objective of the scheduling can be categorized into two types. It may be system centric or it may be application centric. System centric means we will see that how we can properly utilize a particular system. In application perspective, you can see how the application will be completed with a less make span, right? A system will execute. A system will execute either first application or second application or third applications. even if it is completing a particular work, it is again getting some other work. That's why you are maintaining a particular queue, right? Suppose the first task is completed in this computer system, then the second task will start. Second task is completed, third task will start. So the optimization objective is to how to properly utilize this computer system. That is the resource utilization of each and every computer system should be as maximum as possible. Second is if you go to the application centric, you can say that whenever a user is submitting an applications, based upon that application, how efficiently you can provide the resources, or how the applications or the how the works assigned by a particular user can be completed with a minimum time. That is nothing but your less make spend that you have to think. So there are three major players what we are discussing here. The complete grid system is there in between the service provider and service consumer. So there are three players in the grid system. One is your grid system, another is your resource provider, that is your provider who is having sufficient surplus number of resources, another is resource customer who require the resources in order to complete their work, right? So this is the complete hierarchical classification. As I mentioned, there are two type of classifications are there. One is your hierarchical classification, another is called flat applications, right? So if you go for hierarchical classifications of a grid resource job scheduling model, you can see here there is a local scheduling may be there or global scheduling is there. For example, you have one resource management system here, okay? You have another resource management system here, okay? So for example, a request is reaching to this particular resource management system. What this resource management do? It has a local scheduler, so it can assign the resources. Okay, from the resource local scheduler can accept this particular request and assign the resources in its own resource management system. And that particular resource is not shared to other resource management system. In that case, we are saying it is a local system. Global system means the resources shared by the resource management systems, each and every systems or computer systems or the nodes participate or collaborated with other resource management is monitored. So you cannot assign until unless you have to actually inform to other resource management that I am going to assign this job to my computer system, because they also know about your resource management, your utilization of your resources, right? Suppose you have three resources, whether the resources are free or busy, that is known to the other resource management systems also, right? So if you are monitoring like this, then we can say that system is called global. But if it is restricted to your resource management system, it may happen that two computers you have shared with shared in collaboration, another computer is you have not shared, which can you utilize for the local policies, right? So if you are going for the global policies, these global policies again two type. One is either static, another is dynamic, right? In static case, we are assuming that everything is available. For example, task 1, task 2, task 3, task 4 is there. So I can assign any task at any point of time. Not necessary to follow the 1, 2, 3, 4 order. Static means you have information. I can assign 3 first to 4 second, first, third, and second in the fourth position. So that is called as a static policy. Next is your dynamic policy. Dynamic policies means that is your online algorithms, right? So at a particular instant some time, one will be arrived, then one you have to schedule. At after some time, two is coming, two you have to schedule, and next is three you have to schedule, and four you have to schedule. So you can say this static is sometimes called as your offline algorithms, and dynamic is called as your online algorithms, right? Similarly, static can be optimal or suboptimal, right? Or dynamic may be physically distributed or physically non-distributed. Okay. So based upon that, this complete picture is coming to that is called as your hierarchical classifications. So this is a particular job scheduling model. Similarly, we have another model that is called as a flat classification, right? Okay, let us take a poll now. All of you please answer this question, which we have discussed in the very first slide. What are the two kernel functions for grid resource management? So you have last 15 seconds. Last 5 seconds. Okay, what is the correct answer? The correct answer is given by 89 students. That is fine. That is grid resource brokering and scheduling are the two kernel function of the grid resource management, right? So the next discussion is our grid resource monitoring with CGSP. Here CGSP stands for your China Grid Supporting Platform, which I introduced in the last class. We are going to discuss it, right? So here we are using a model that is our producer consumer model. You may have studied producer consumer model in computer network as well. So the producer consumer model for grid monitoring. So here you can see there is a producer and there is a consumer, right? Producer is nothing but your service provider. Consumer is nothing but your grid consumer, right? Who is seeking the resources. So you can see this figure. This figure shows the complete producer consumer problem, right? You can see there is a producer here, there is a consumer. Consumer and producer is referring to a third party, that is your directory services. Okay, directory services, producer is what are the surplus resources, whatever surplus resources are there, or whatever resources the producer has that is maintained in a directory, and consumer is requesting the directory services and specifying the quality of service requirement. So based upon that, it searches for a particular resources, and both consumer and producer is registered under the directory services, right? So once a matchmaking happen, okay, when the consumer requirements, whatever consumer has specified, if a producer is going to solve that particular requirement, then the relationship between the consumer and producer is established. That we call it an event. Okay. So this model is providing you a basic framework for grid resource monitoring to support various functionalities required by users, and also it also supports the interoperability. It improves the interoperability among different grid resources. So you can see the producer is connected to your sensors or application, monitor, and database. That are the resources the particular producer had, right? So the producer is going to provide that resources to the consumer. Okay, but this everything is listed in the directory services. You can also see the second figure. The consumer is there in the upper level, and the intermediary, this is the intermediary figure, right? This is a consumer is there in the upper level, producer is there in the bottom level, right? That is a lower level. Okay. So in between there is a intermediary who is monitoring the services or mapping the services. Based upon that, the consumer is going to be assigned with the resources available in the producer, right? So this grid monitoring includes the short lifetime and frequent changes and randomness and so much things, right? And the model specifies, the model should satisfy the requirement of three things. Three things need to be satisfied in by each and every model. First one is your low latency. The delay should be as minimum as possible. High data transfer rate between two different units. Overhead should be as minimum as possible. Okay, and security and scalability should be provided. These are the primary requirements of you can say of your model. Okay, this producer consumer model supports these things, these five things, that is low latency, high transfer rate, and low overhead, security, and scalability. Right? So if you see a typical example, the China Grid Supervision, that is CGSB for resource monitoring. Okay. So this is the CGSB system. So you can see it is divided into various layers. So this is the architecture of CGSB system. So in China Grid, the monitoring system is essential to keep such a complex distributed system efficient, right? You know that the resources are completely distributed, it's a completely complex system, right? So how to deal with this system, that is managed by the China Grid. And the major component of our CGSP, if you see, they are job manager, storage manager is there, information center. Okay, these are providing system status information for different purposes. Okay, then is CGSP system was designed for monitoring the China grid performance. You can see the performance of each and every node, okay, through this China grid, right? And this particular system is designed to monitor everything and check whether the performance is high or low, right? Similarly, CGSV is built with three different layers. You can see the bottom one is called a collection layer. In collection layer, you have sensor 1 and sensor 2, right? So sensors are deployed in the, you can say, in the collection layer, right? That is used to, these sensors are used to collect the data in data collection. Like you know that your sensors are referred to the systems that are collecting information. So we are using sensor 1, especially sensor 1 is responsible for collecting hardware resource informations, right? And other resources are also there of information, including like network conditions or dynamic service informations, or the data aggregated by other monitoring tools are also taken into consideration, right? Similarly, in the top of the collection layer, you have service layer. Okay, service layer, the main purpose of this layer is presented as a logical domain for monitoring the center, where you can see there is a two registry, that is domain registry services or monitor services are deployed. You can see registry is there, okay, or repository is there. Okay, monitoring services are available in the second layer, that is your, we can say second layer is your service layer. On top of that, you have presentation layer, which is close to the service customer, right? So you have also a message gateway service here, and it is going to provide this message gateway service is providing you the communication cost of monitoring the services. Whenever you are monitoring the services, okay, the communication cost required, that will be counted by your message gateway service. And the top layer is your presentation layer, in which data analysis, virtualization, and you can say management of the resources is done in the top layer. So this is the complete architecture followed in the China grid supervision, okay, or CGSP. Okay, next we are going to discuss about the service accounting and economic model. So whenever a service is provided to a particular customer, accounting plays an important role. Based upon your usage, one bill is generated that customer is going to provide that much amount once the services is given, right? So here you can see first the service provider register their shared resources to a registry. As I mentioned, there is a registry is there where the service provider as well as service consumers is registered, right? So that you can say that they are also the genuine provider, they are not the hacker, right? Or some intruder, right? So resource provider register their shared resources together with resource information. Resource information means you have to specify what is your hardware capacity, software capacity, what type of pricing mechanism you are expecting. That also you need to specify, whether it is $1 for MB or $5 for MB, that you have to specify, right, into the grid market. On the other hand, if you see resource consumer is submitting their job with special requirement. Requirement means they are also specifying the hardware capacity required, software configuration required, quality of service, budget, everything they are specifying to a resource broker, right? Then what happened? The broker will map the resource consumer with the resource provider, right? So broker is searching the resources and allocating the resources to the consumer, and customer is going to be charged for it. So this charging is based upon two things. One is two accounting services are there that we are going to discuss. So you can see here, grid services are monitored by this particular unit, and this monitoring is connected to your metering services. Like you have electricity meter or water pipe meter, right? In which units are counted, and after the end of the month, the bill is coming, right? Based upon that, you are going to pay for it, right? So two accounting policies. First one is called as your monitoring metering services. Another is called as your accounting component. So first component, that is monitoring and metering services, is directly collecting your raw usage information, that is the CPU time from grid services and resources. But for a particular consumer, it is determining how much time the CPU is busy, or how much time you have utilized the CPU properly, and what is the utilization. This raw usage information is collected by this monitoring unit. Once it is collecting this information, each agreed service container or computing node should have a monitoring component deployed. Okay, they have monitoring component deployed. You can see in each and every grid services or a group of grid services, one monitoring unit is there, right? And when the raw data is collected, it is forwarded to the upper level. Upper level, you have metering services and accounting services. So you have to provide the data to them. So for this also, they are charge policies based upon the service usage. How much grid services you have used, and for how much, what is the amount of time you have used these grid services. So you have to charge these charge for using these grid services, right? And this charge policy specify some formula. This charging is nothing but some mathematical formula is there. Like you know that IRCTC Tatkal scheme is there, right? Premium Tatkal scheme is there. There also they are putting a particular formula based upon that particular day or based upon the density of the people visiting to their website. So based upon that some formula is written. That formula is going to obtain the cost for the application, right? And apart from this, there is a grid bank unit is there. So like in real life, we are having bank, lot of banks are there. Similarly, grid resource management, we have a bank. So this is nothing but the accounting system of the grid bus. So they use SOAP, that is Simple Object Access Protocol, over the global toolkit sockets. So they are managing these billings and accounting things. So access from the remote services is authenticated if a resource is accessed remotely. So you have to be authenticated that the resources is available, or that particular resources is belongs to a genuine provider, and authorized using a grid security infrastructure, that is called as your GSI. GSI certify that each and every components or nodes that are associated with the grid is secure. Okay, and they are genuine. They are not the intruder, right? The primary function of the your accounting component is to maintain the economic relationship between the service customer and service provider. Okay, two things: service customer is there, service provider. Their relationship is established by this accounting, and how much charge will be uh, charged by the customer, or how much cost is specified by the provider. For this, we are using a accounting component, right? So by receiving or converting the charge events from metering module, once metering module is giving the things, the accounting module is going to records the billing event. The final bill is generated by the accounting component, right? The account of the grid user holds the information on the balance amount. Sometimes what happens, like you know that whenever we are playing a particular game, or you can say like we are using Phone Pay or we are using Amazon Pay, we have a wallet, right? In that wallet also we can keep money, right? So what happened, once I am using some or I am purchasing a particular item, I can pay from that particular wallet also. So the balance amount can be also updated after each and every usage, and whether the sufficient balance is there or not, that also will be monitored through this accounting component, right? One of the typical example you will discuss here, and that is an economic model of the grid computing, in which you can see there is a trade manager. So I'll show you the economic model. This is the complete economic model, starting from your service consumer to the service provider. In between the consumer and provider, as I mentioned, you have grid resource broker and your grid middleware services, right? So here you can see the application is requested by a grid consumer, which is finally provided by the service provider, right? For this, you have to go through your broker, because broker contains information about the provider as well as your consumer. Okay. So the application is written in some programming environment, which is submitted to the broker. Broker is having a trade manager, scheduler advisor, grid explorer, deployment agent, and job control agent. Each and every uh, component has a responsibility. Like you can see, trade manager. Trade manager is the role of trade manager is identifies the resource access cost. If a resource is allocated to a particular application, what is the cost, right? Similarly, you can see in the provider end, grid market is there, grid bank is there for the accounting informations. Okay, accounting, pricing, everything is monitored by this grid bank, right? And grid market services allows the resource owners, okay, to publish their services. Multiple owners can participate into the grid, right? That's why you have to monitor their resources, right? And there is a trade server here. Grid trade server negotiates with the resource user and maximize the benefit. For example, the service provider is saying $5 per second, right? But user is willing to pay only $4. Such type of negotiations will happen in the trade manager. And pricing units is having different prices, whether the price is subscription based or time based, that will be decided by this pricing unit, right? And grid bank is going to, like our bank is monitoring everything, right? Grid bank is records the resource usage, billing information, whether the bill is paid by the customer, whether the customer is having sufficient credit or not. Everything is monitored by this bank. So this particular model is this economic model is developed by Professor Rajkumar Bhuiya, University of Melbourne, Australia. Okay, so now I will tell you about the resource brokering with GridBus, right? So here I'll show you a figure where you can see what are the steps, whatever we discussed till now, how this process is going to happen, right? We are going to see the operational perspective of the grid environment. The operational perspective of this grid environment is divided into 11 steps. Okay, what are the steps? The very first step you can see here. The first step is user compose a particular application. As I mentioned here, user is composing a particular application. Okay, and his application is submitted to a distributed application. For example, it may be a weather forecasting application, it may be a parameter sweep applications, right? Second one is user specifies the requirements to the grid resource broker. User have to specify what is the requirement to the grid resource broker, so that grid resource broker can find a appropriate resources based upon the requirement of the user. Third one is grid resource broker performs the resource discovery. It has to identify the resource, right? So using the grid information services, which is called as GIS, so it locates the resources. It may locate multiple resources as well. Then broker identifies the resource service prices also. It will say that I have 5 alternatives, the price are XYZ, right? So you have to choose one price mechanism. Based upon that, the resource will be allocated to you. In the fifth step, the broker identifies the list of data sources or replicas. Select the optimal one. Sometimes the data is replicated into multiple places because there may be chances of failure, right? So such type of data sources and replicas also identified by the broker, and it is identified, it has located in optimal policy. It can suggest you the optimal choice out of a list of choice. Sixth step is to the broker identify the computational resources that provide the required services. So it will say that this particular resource site or this particular resource management system is going to provide the resources to you. Seventh step is the broker ensures that the user has necessary credit. Just like I told you about wallet, right? Wallet, you have sufficient monies are there, or you are belongs to an authorized person or not, or whether the resource is properly utilized by that user or not. That things is analyzed by the broker in the seventh step. Eighth step is the broker scheduler analyzes the resource to meet the user quality of service requirement like reliability, availability, that is checked in this step. And the broker agent on a resource executes the jobs and return the result. Finally, broker has assigned the application to the computational resources. And when these computational resources will complete the work, it is going to return the result. So broker collates the results and passes to the user, and as metering unit, okay, meter charges the user by passing the resource usage information to the account. So this accounting unit is going to generate a bill based upon the resource usage and what type of resources is provided to you. Based upon that, they are charging. So this is the complete step. Whatever we discussed, you can go through this particular figure. In the last, just I want to tell you another example, that is grid bus architecture, which is used by University of Melbourne. So they have designed a grid bus resource architecture. So this architecture you can see in which they are using various grids and cloud like Globus toolkit they are using here. They are also using Anek Cloud, which is providing the platform as a service. They are also using Amazon EC2 to provide the services, and everything is managed by a broker. Okay, so whenever the resource is satisfied by Globus, then the resource will be assigned to the application will be assigned to the Globus. There is a bulk amount of resources required, they may approach Amazon EC2 because it can provide a very high amount of resources, right? You can create as many as instances possible, right? So everything is managed by this grid bus broker to monitor the things, right? Okay, so you can see this grid bus resource broker is a market-oriented meta scheduler for the computational data grid. The main responsibility of the broker is to choose a right resources for a right applications, because it is looking both sides, as well as the service consumer, as well as the service provider. And its responsibility is how to assign the applications of a user to the resources such that the deadline is maintained. Sometimes a resource need to be delivered or a particular work need to be completed before the deadline. That is the responsibility of grid resource broker. And if there is a fault happen, if a resource is failed also, that is the responsibility of grid resource broker is to start the replica. That is the backup resources so that the performance should not be affected. So the broker is also charging, you can see different pricing schemes, like someone is charging $1 grid per second. Okay. So if you want to use the grid resources, you have to pay $1 grid per second. Or somebody may say that you have to pay $1 grid per 1 MB usage, right? So various pricing schemes are used, and both the grids and clouds are connected to the grid broker in order to satisfy the requirements. Okay. So this is the complete picture. You can